There's a fruit growing quietly across North America right now that absolutely breaks the rules of modern nutrition. I'm talking about a berry that scores 16,620 on the antioxidant scale, while blueberries, the poster child of health food marketing, barely scrape past 4,600. Cranberries don't even crack 10,000. And yet, despite being native to this land, despite growing wild across more than 30 states, despite requiring zero pesticides, zero chemicals, and zero maintenance once established, you've never seen it in a grocery store. You've never seen a Super Bowl commercial for it. Chances are, you've never even heard its real name. And before we go any further, do me a quick favor. If you appreciate learning about the things history buried and industry forgot, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who still thinks blueberries are the final boss of nutrition. Trust me, this story only gets wilder from here, because this fruit wasn't banned. That would have been too obvious. Instead, it was quietly erased. They gave it a name that sounded unpleasant, branded it inedible, and let silence finish the job. Chokeberry. Even the word feels dismissive, like it's daring you not to care. And for nearly 2 centuries, that tactic worked perfectly. While Americans ripped it out of hedgerows and poisoned it along fence lines, Europe was paying attention. Europe was studying it. Europe was planting it by the acre. Today, Poland produces around 90% of the world's supply of this North American native plant, and then sells it back to us as an imported luxury supplement at 10 times the cost. That's not irony, that's theft with extra steps. What makes this story even more infuriating is that the knowledge didn't originate in a lab or a university or a pharmaceutical research wing. It began with indigenous nations who understood something modern society forgot, that food can be engineered for survival, not pleasure. This berry wasn't a snack, it was technology. It was a critical component of pemmican, the dense, shelf-stable food that allowed entire communities to survive brutal winters when hunting failed and nothing grew. The process was precise. The berries were dried to concentrate their tannins. Those tannins preserved meat fats, preventing spoilage for months or even years. You could carry concentrated nutrition in a leather pouch and cross frozen landscapes where death waited for anyone unprepared. That's not folklore. That's biochemical engineering passed down through lived experience. Then settlers arrived with sugar on their tongues and no cultural framework for bitterness as medicine. They bit into the raw berry, recoiled at the astringency, and dismissed it outright. No curiosity, no context, just contempt. They wanted sweetness. They wanted dopamine now. So they named it chokeberry, and with that single word, they executed its reputation. A linguistic assassination. The plant didn't change. The chemistry didn't change. Only the story did. And stories matter more than truth when markets are involved. Here's where things get uncomfortable. The fruit they dismissed is Aronia melanocarpa, and according to the United States Department of Agriculture, it's the most antioxidant-dense fruit ever recorded. Not one of, the highest. When scientists measure antioxidant capacity using ORAC, oxygen radical absorbance capacity, they're looking at how effectively a food neutralizes free radicals, the unstable molecules that drive inflammation, aging, and chronic disease. Blueberries sit comfortably at 4,669 micromoles per 100 grams. Cranberries reach about 9,090. Strawberries barely register. These are the fruits dominating grocery aisles and marketing budgets. And then there's aronia at 16,620. That's not a small improvement. That's a different category entirely. Over 300% higher than blueberries. That's like comparing a bicycle to a freight train. And it gets worse for the narrative we've all been sold. The antioxidants in aronia aren't generic. They're primarily anthocyanins and proanthocyanidins, compounds that specifically target vascular inflammation. In other words, they go after the root cause of heart disease, stroke, and metabolic dysfunction. You've probably heard of the French paradox, right? The idea that populations consuming red wine have lower rates of heart disease despite diets high in fat. That protective effect is attributed to polyphenols in red wine grapes. Here's the part nobody advertises. Aronia contains roughly 4 times more of those same compounds than the finest wine grapes on earth. 4 times. But wine gets the romance, wine gets the prestige, wine gets the billion-dollar industry. Aronia gets called a weed. Modern science eventually caught up to what indigenous knowledge already understood. Clinical trials, primarily conducted in Europe, where the crop is actually grown, have shown statistically significant drops in blood pressure among people consuming aronia regularly. We're talking average reductions of 8 to 11 millimeters of mercury. That's not nice to have. That's comparable to pharmaceutical intervention. And the mechanism isn't mysterious. These compounds improve endothelial function, the health of your blood vessel linings. Healthier vessels mean better circulation and lower pressure. Then there's blood sugar. Aronia inhibits alpha-glucosidase, the enzyme responsible for breaking down carbohydrates into simple sugars. Slow that process down and you blunt insulin spikes. Blunt insulin spikes and you reduce the progression toward metabolic syndrome and type 2 diabetes. This isn't speculation, this is published, replicated research. And here's the part that explains everything. Natural blood pressure regulation and blood sugar control compete directly with 2 of the most profitable pharmaceutical categories on the planet. Hypertension drugs generate tens of billions annually. Diabetes medications generate even more. A berry bush in your backyard that offers similar benefits for the price of dirt and patience is not a product. It's a threat. And if the nutritional profile didn't already doom aronia in the eyes of industrial agriculture, the agricultural profile sealed its fate. This plant is hardy to USDA Zone 3. That means it survives temperatures down to -40 degrees Fahrenheit. No greenhouse, no winter protection. It just endures. Once established, it's drought-tolerant thanks to a deep root system that finds water long after shallow-rooted crops fail. Pests avoid it, deer avoid it, insects avoid it. The same tannins that give the berry its medicinal bitterness make it naturally resistant to damage. Compare that to blueberries, which require acidic soil, constant moisture, precise pH management, and chemical protection. Commercial blueberry farming depends on inputs. Aronia does not. A single bush produces 15 to 20 pounds of fruit every year for 30 years with virtually no intervention. From an agronomic perspective, it's a miracle. From an agrochemical perspective, it's a nightmare. You can't sell fertilizer to a plant that doesn't need it. You can't sell pesticides to a crop insects won't touch. You can't sell dependency when the plant thrives independently. Modern agriculture isn't designed around solutions, it's designed around recurring revenue. And then there's the final barrier, the one that seals aronia's exile from grocery stores. The taste? It's not sweet, it's astringent. That mouth-drying sensation? Those are the tannins, the medicine itself. For 70 years, industrial agriculture has bred fruits for sugar content because sweetness sells. Higher Brix means higher profit, so the bitterness gets bred out and the nutrition goes with it. Blueberry muffins are sugar delivery systems. Cranberry juice cocktails are 90% sugar water. The fruit becomes a flavoring agent for dessert, masquerading as health food. Aronia refuses that compromise. It demands processing. You blend it, you dry it, you dilute it. It requires intention, and intention doesn't scale well in a system built on convenience and addiction. But knowledge doesn't die. It just waits. Over the last decade, farmers across the Midwest have started planting aronia again. Iowa, Missouri, Nebraska, thousands of acres. Perennial food instead of annual commodity crops. Nutrition instead of empty calories. Small farms are offering U-pick operations. Nurseries are selling bushes. Health food companies are turning it into powders, concentrates, and extracts. The story is resurfacing, and here's the part that should make you pause. You can plant this yourself. Today, For about $40, you can buy a 3-year-old bush that will produce fruit this season and every season after for the next 30 years. No fertilizer, no pesticides, no maintenance, just autumn harvests of the most potent fruit on the continent. Don't buy anything labeled chokeberry. That's the old insult. Look for aronia, the original name, the respectful one. This plant wasn't lost. It was buried, renamed, ignored. But it's still here, still growing, still producing numbers. Modern nutrition can't explain away. They didn't ban it. They convinced you it didn't matter. But now you know, and knowledge spreads one share at a time. If you want more stories like this, forgotten plants, buried systems, and the quiet ways we were disconnected from resilience, make sure you're subscribed. Drop a comment and tell me whether you'd plant this in your backyard. And remember, the next garden opens soon.